You're listening to the Hanzi Comprehensive Exam podcast from hanzicomprehensiveexam.com. I'm your host, Lindsay Oden. Hello, and welcome to episode 13 of the Hanzi Comprehensive Exam podcast. I'm your host, Lindsay Oden. On today's episode, you'll hear an interview that Bonnie and I did with my friend Leslie Lewis, who used to work for Senator Harry Reid here in Nevada. Leslie managed the housing foreclosure mitigation team, which means she helped people avoid foreclosure following the housing crisis and the economic recession of 2008. We also discussed the upcoming presidential election and Leslie's experiences in grad school. At the beginning of the pod, you might hear some technical difficulties. We were having trouble with the microphones, but we were able to fix it about 15 minutes in, so hopefully the noise issues don't bother you too much. As always, remember to follow me on Twitter at ScreaminVegan and keep up with the Hanzi Comprehensive Exam blog at hanzicomprehensiveexam.com. Let's start the show. All right. We are here on the Hanzi Comprehensive Exam podcast episode, I think lucky 13.
Is it?
Yeah,
All
I
right,
think it
number
is.
13.
So I'm here with Bonnie, the co-host today. Say hi.
Hi, everybody. How's it going?
And our guest today is Leslie Lewis.
Hi guys, thanks for having me.
And you're a friend of mine from grad school.
Yes.
That's awesome. Yes. We took a few classes together last year, and you're in your second year.
Yes, almost done.
You're almost done.
Yes.
That's great. We will wrap back around that to the end, because I think there are a couple things that I would love to talk to you first about. And the first one is that you used to work for Senator Harry Reid here in Las Vegas.
Yes.
So what was your role working for Senator Reid?
I was his foreclosure mitigation manager for the state of Nevada. So that's just a fancy word basically for constituent services in housing and financial sector. I also worked on his behalf in the women's community, just organizing and delivering certain constituent services.
So in your role as foreclosure mitigation manager, what exactly did you do? Like what was your day-to-day job like?
So Senator Reid had a team of foreclosure housing specialists.
Do you want to come up with a word just to give yourselves like a much better, like an easier to pronounce name, just like in one word?
Yeah, housing counselors.
Okay, all right,
basically.
housing counselors.
And so after the...
We are back from technical difficulties. I don't know how much audio we lost.
Okay.
So let's just start with what was your job like day to day?
My day-to-day job was managing a group of representatives who specialized in housing. Basically, we all took part in helping constituents not get foreclosed on from 2010 to 2015. I ran the numbers once, and it was amazing. We had actually saved around 13,000 homes from foreclosure. Nevadans here.
And is that just in Las Vegas, or is that where is your territory?
Yeah, for Nevada.
For Nevada.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
For Nevada. Actually, it's a very special case of a congressional leader helping constituents here on the ground. Normally, it was the first case of its kind where Senator Reid got with the leaders of private institutions, banks, and said something has to be done. We can't have all these people being foreclosed on.
Right.
We just can't. Normally in a congressional office, you have staff like me making congressional inquiries to federal agencies like Social Security, the VA, on the behalf of constituents. This person is not getting their check. Can you help us out? And they are compelled to immediately respond and fix it for the senator, for congressional leaders. In the case of private institutions, that doesn't happen because Senator Reid...
They're divided.
Yeah, exactly. So in this instance, Senator Reid's leadership was absolutely critical to making sure that people received the services from the bank, ensuring that they didn't go into foreclosure. it was amazing.
Wow, that's fantastic. Pretty much you save 13,000 at-risk families from losing their homes.
So
Yeah.
working like one-on-one, like in the homes, like with these people, like actually sitting down and helping them like rework their budgets to figure out like how they could afford to keep their homes, or like were you working with lawyers to try and like fight for them in court for them to keep their houses, or was it sort of a combination of everything?
So that's a great question. What you've basically just described is the work of housing counselors at HUD-approved counseling agencies.
Okay.
And these agencies are, for the most part, federally funded. They do receive other nonprofit support. But so Senator Reid was essential in getting these HUD-approved counseling agencies the funding that they needed so that we representatives could send constituents, struggling homeowners, to these experts, housing experts. And for free, they assisted them, got their whatever they needed, got their financials together, actually applied for mortgage modification, short sale, whatever it may be. On the other side, no, we didn't provide legal advice. We were not, and none of the caseworkers on our team were lawyers or had legal expertise, but you would be surprised how effective and how helpful it is it was for us to send a congressional inquiry to the bank on the behalf of the constituent.
Right.
They'd respond, and, the rest is history.
That's great.
We actually helped many more than 13,000 homeowners. We would have events basically every 3 months. Senator Reid made it a point that this is one of the things that he was going to be on the ground with. So that was part of my job to organize these events. We did a ton of them. The first event we had probably, I would say, about 6,000 people at this event. Now, and now as the years went on, it kind of, the last event before my departure, there were maybe 100 people, but that's a good thing. That means,
that, at least basically you guys did your job and helped the people that you needed to help, and so
exactly.
My next question was going to be, how did you get the job in the first place? Like, did you start as a campaign volunteer, or what was the process that you went through to get a position like that?
Yeah, okay, that's a great question. So I was a campaign volunteer. I had volunteered for the Democratic Party often. When I was at UNLV, I volunteered often. I actually was offered a position at Senator Reid's office prior to 2010. And then I was a poli-sci major at UNLV.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
I was also a poli-sci major before I was a history
yeah,
major.
that's right.
I got a poli-sci degree first.
That's so cool.
I'm all up on the lingo.
You're all up on the lingo. That's awesome. But a lot of the people that were in my graduating class had worked, actually many of them were working for Senator Reid already, either in the official office or in a campaign capacity. And then during the 2010 election, I don't know if you guys remember it or were
he
here.
faced a challenge,
Yeah.
right? From what was her name? Sharon Engel.
Sharon Engel.
Right,
Mm-hmm.
and she was a wacko.
Yeah. So
and I'm sure that was a lot of fun to fight her off.
Yeah. So in the official office, a lot of the official staff went to work for the campaign.
Right.
Left the official office for a time. They brought me on to kind of help
I see.
out.
Yeah, because he takes his staff that is usually helping him do his job as a senator, and then they go and manage the campaign, but he's still a senator.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. And you came in the interim.
Yes, exactly, on the official side.
Great. And then how did you parlay that from a campaign job to being a full position?
So when I came on staff, I came on as an official staff member in the Senate office, not on the campaign side. But I thought I'll just do this for, 3 months until the campaign's over, till the election's over, and then I'm going to go to law school. That's what I thought.
Okay.
And I loved it so much, and I always admired Senator Reid. After the election, after his victory, he ended up offering me a position there. So I was always an official staffer, but I did volunteer on the campaign side,
Right.
often.
No, I mean,
Yeah.
it's fantastic. So you take, you start out pretty much at the bottom,
Yeah.
as a
Yeah.
volunteer, not paid, and you turn that into a
Position,
full-time
yeah.
job.
So I have a question for you. So what advice would you have for maybe anybody who's listening to this and is thinking that they are maybe interested in doing something very similar, which is finding a like a senator or any kind of politician that they want to work for the office of? What steps did you take to get started with that? And what would you recommend that people do if they're interested in becoming a part of something like what you worked on?
Okay, that's a great question. Get involved with the campaign. Get involved with the party.
Mm-hmm.
So you have the Young Democrats on UNLV, the Young Republicans. But if you can volunteer for a coordinated campaign for whichever party you want.
Either party.
Either party. They're always looking for young people who are eager to help. I mean, they always are. And if you make a name for yourself as a hard worker, someone who's dedicated to the cause, word will spread. I mean, it's a small kind of world that we live in. If that's your ambition, then, that's the way to do it. I mean, really, it's not that big of a leap to...
Yeah, as long as you get FaceTime, you're working probably really intimately with a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I think what you said about getting involved with the party and being a part of the organization, right? Yeah. The strength of both parties, the Democrats and the Republicans, is their national infrastructure. They have offices in every state,
Right.
and if you want to work for a politician who's part of the party, you have to work with the party. That makes complete sense.
Yeah, exactly. And Senator Reid was the leader.
Let me see. What kind of experience did you gain from the job?
Oh my gosh. I got so much experience with the federal system. I honestly, and I can tell you this with complete humility, before I worked in a congressional office, even though I was a poli-sci major, I had no clue how the federal government actually worked for constituents.
Right.
No clue.
Mm-hmm.
I would have never guessed that you can actually contact your congressional representative for assistance on a variety of matters. The most valuable thing that I gained from that is knowledge on how the federal government actually operates and knowing how to impact systems within it.
No, that's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
I think there is we know this from any number of surveys and things. The American people simply do not understand the government, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's first of all, it's big and scary,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
and there's a level of detachment between people and their representatives.
Right.
And I think the idea that there is constituent outreach is important, obviously. I mean, they're constituents and you are claiming to represent them.
Right.
And it's very interesting to hear the ways in which a national politician takes an interest in individual families, individual people,
Yeah.
which is important. Now, I'm no shill for the Democratic Party. I
Yeah.
think that's pretty obvious from all the other episodes. But I think it's important to realize like what people are doing and why. How many times did he win re-election? That's not an accident.
Yeah.
Right? He served since
1986.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got some, by the way, in special collections, we have some great young Harry Reid
Oh,
pictures
I bet.
that I came across the other day. And I was like, oh, who's that young man over there? Oh, that's Senator Harry Reid.
I could go on about, and I think it's kind of a prerequisite for working for any congressional leader. I mean, you have got to be completely passionate about them as a person. You have to believe in them, because part of my job was going out in the community and, talking to constituents, speaking on his behalf. If you're going to be out there, you need to be ready for what people are going to say. Mm-hmm. And of course, he's a very polarizing figure. So you're going to love him, hate him. But at the end of the day, he represents the state. He is the state. Mm-hmm. And everyone, all my colleagues, kind of young people coming out of UNLV's poli-sci department, absolutely would probably do a lot for that man. So
here's a hypothetical, and I was thinking about this before you came over. What do you do when you disagree? If you did, and you don't need to give any specific examples or anything, but if he had a policy, and we can think of any number of examples, right? He's pretty conservative on like gun control, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
So if you did have an issue that you disagreed with him on, what do you do in your job to address that yourself and continue doing your job?
Right. It is important, and it depends on the congressional. It depends on the leader, the politician you're working with, mm-hmm. your boss. It is important to Senator Reid that you be honest with him. He does not like people. Mm-hmm. If you, first of all, he already knows that he's employing people who are already supporting the cause.
Right.
Mm-hmm. If you have a perspective, if you disagree, it's important that you relay that information and that it be based on what you see in the community and how it can benefit the community. Part of what I guess a lot of people do, and I didn't know actually, so the way that we communicate with him when he's in DC is we give him a report every week when he's in DC. If we're hearing something, if we feel that something needs to be done about a particular issue, we let him know through that report. He will tell you what he thinks on when it comes back to you.
Right.
And, I'm thinking of one of my former colleagues who's a diehard liberal. I think about him a lot because he's inspiring to me. But, you don't always agree. You may think that whoever you're working for needs to be a bit more strong on certain issues. And he let him know every time. And it's important for leaders that they don't just have yes people around them.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, especially, he's also rather detached, right? He spends 9 months or whatever of the year in D.C. He doesn't meet with most Nevadans, right? So he needs to get those kinds of reports and be able to adapt. Can you think of an example of when he may have changed a policy position based on one of your reports?
On many occasions, I don't think change is the word I would use.
Maybe adapt?
But maybe, I guess, refocused the way in which we were headed after things kind of subsided with, all these foreclosures and people started to bounce back. I think it was a good opportunity for us, and I think that a lot of people agreed we'd start focusing on financial sustainability, personal finances of folks. I don't want to say that changed. He had always been focused on that, but I think we definitely were able to kind of focus his attention a bit more on student loan debt and how that affects the housing market.
Sure.
And I also want to say, I don't think it was just me at all. I think that, he was kind of headed that way, and, our chief of staff definitely helped in that regard.
That's fantastic. I think that's a really good answer, right, to this idea, because I was reading today that Hillary Clinton came out against the Trans-Pacific Partnership, right? So she's I would hate to say running to the left of Bernie Sanders, like he's opposed it from the beginning, but she's, moving that direction.
Yeah.
But under, in her capacity as Secretary of State, she had to represent the Obama administration. The Obama administration is in favor of TPP. And she had to go all over the world and support it, right, with something that she disagrees with, and which I don't know if it will help or hurt her in the upcoming election, but she had to be considering it. And yet she's all over the world promoting it, or promoting the United States interests as defined by the Obama administration.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you are not, when you're Hillary Clinton was working for Obama in that capacity. She's Secretary of State. She's not necessarily there to go off on her own, agenda.
She represents the state. She doesn't represent Hillary Clinton.
Exactly.
Yeah.
She's delivering the policy agenda of Obama. So yeah, it's interesting to see her, as she distances herself a bit from the Obama administration. It's interesting to kind of see that dynamic. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Well, I think it'll also be interesting to see if she continues sort of steering to the left on a lot of issues, because I think right now she's really sort of panicking a little bit because her numbers are dropping pretty rapidly to Bernie Sanders, and he's catching up very quickly.
Like 2 seconds?
Sure.
Can we bring the Senator Reid to a close? Like, do you have any other questions that you would like to touch on about that? Okay. If you feel good about your answers, we can move on.
I feel great.
Yeah.
Is that your final answer, Leslie?
Yes. I will just say, I think Nevada is going to understand just how beloved their senior senator was when he retires.
Right.
And yeah, it'll be interesting to see where we go from here.
Right. Well, I think that's a good transition point to move to the election. If you want to talk about the election a little bit, I know you do. I see it in your face, Bonnie. I see it in your face. For all of our listeners who can't see Bonnie's face right now, she looks intent.
Do I? Is this my intent face?
Really intent.
Okay, all right. Let me just try and bring it back a couple notches because I don't want to be like burning myself out so early on with
I'm
my.
Scared. No.
Yeah.
on my notes, I called this bullet point 2: Bernie Sanders, Hillary Clinton, and the GOP clusterfuck. So let's just jump right in.
Okay.
The first thing I would want to do is, are you going to be working during this election?
As much as I can, but we know the reality of grad school.
Of course.
And preparing for comps.
Of course.
Oh, yeah.
If you could work on any campaign, which Democratic candidate would you support? Hillary?
Hillary, totally all the way.
Interesting. Now, and you don't have to answer this because I know this puts you in a sticky spot. If Bernie Sanders was the nominee, would you work for... okay.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
If he was the nominee, definitely.
Yeah, because then it becomes about party unity, right? Like, I think that's what happened pretty substantially in 2008. The same thing happened. You had all the Hillary Clinton supporters who had to unite behind Barack Obama and be very disappointed, right? But, I mean, ultimately he won, so he defeated John McCain. That's ultimately the right decision. But I think we're gearing up for the same kind of battle here between Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton, is that he is courting the young, progressive, educated crowd, and she is the establishment candidate, right?
Yeah, she's the establishment.
So she, I was reading, I think she has over 100 congressional supporters, and Bernie Sanders got one this week. Yeah, he's up to number 1.
I believe the senior senator from Vermont. Maybe.
I'm trying to remember who it was. It's somebody that he co-founded the Progressive Caucus with, his buddy. So he's got one, and that's the hardest one to get when you think about it.
The first one.
Yeah, the first one. So I think let's do the Democrats first. Let's just handicap the field. We'll say we'll go around the room. What is the percentage chance you think Hillary Clinton will get the nomination, Bernie Sanders will get the nomination, or somebody else, Martin O'Malley or Joe Biden or somebody who hasn't announced yet? Bonnie, what do you think?
I don't like this question. I think it's too early to tell.
That's why we're prognosticators,
I don't
Bonnie.
like this question.
You don't have to like it.
What's the next question?
What percentage chance do you think Hillary Clinton will get the nomination at this point right now. She's got more money. She's got more support. She's still up by like 12 points.
I mean, I would probably put her at like 80% right now, but I mean, election's not till next year, Lindsay. I think that as Bernie becomes a lot more recognized, you know, I think as his name recognition, I think he's going to give Hillary a little bit more of a run for her money. I think the gap between them is going to close quite a bit. But I don't think there's, it's too early to tell.
So you think 80%. What percentage chance would you give Hillary in the general, regardless of who wins on the GOP side?
I mean, I don't see a Republican winning.
Yeah, okay.
I just don't. So, I mean, the Democrat candidate will win. It's just going to be a matter of whether it's going to be Hillary or somebody else.
Good. Leslie, what percentage chance you give Hillary right now?
Versus Bernie Sanders. Right now or after, when's her final hearing with those?
Oh, boy. Well,
I think it depends. But honestly, I think Hillary will get it. I think it's probably about 80-20.
Mm-hmm.
I think Bernie Sanders is going to force her hand on a lot of the issues where she wants to be more centrist.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think if I remember correctly, 538 has also said it's still about an 80% chance that she's going to get it. Biden, of course, throws a weird wrench into it because I don't think Biden wins Bernie's supporters. He splits Hillary's off, right? Because he's another establishment guy.
Mm-hmm.
He's got panache as the senator. Of course, he's the vice president, but he's got Obama stink all over him.
I think he, depending on how that final hearing goes at the end of October, I think that will determine if he's actually going to seriously.
So if he thinks Hillary is seriously wounded in that hearing, do you think he'll throw his hat in the ring?
Mm-hmm. I think he needs to.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
that's interesting too.
Yeah.
I think I'm a little more optimistic, and I'll tell you why. I like Bernie to win 35% right now of the Democratic nomination. Here's my reasoning. I think it's because Hillary Clinton's unfavorability numbers are really high. There's a lot of people who will just never vote for her. And I think that's a problem, but she still has a majority, right? If she wins out, if every single person who has an unfavorable view of her votes for Bernie Sanders, she'll still win. But on the other hand, as we go into the debates, which is where I think Sanders is going to hold her feet to the fire on some of these issues where she, most of her donors have come from Wall Street, whereas his have come from organized labor and individual contributions. I think he'll really make her defend that kind of thing, and I think that's his shot. If he really kills her in the debates, which I think it's not a great probability that he will. Nobody watches these damn things, but people will be talking about them for a long time, and it's going to keep him in focus. And I think if he can really wound her in those debates and make her answer for a lot of those things, then he has a shot, right? We know he's leading in New Hampshire, but that's his backyard. We know he's got a slight lead within the margin of error in Iowa. Who cares, right? But it's the states like California and Nevada and Oregon where he might get some of those votes from those, I don't want to call them hippies, but these us left coasters who know a little bit better, but Hillary, she's got support in New York. She's not going to give up easily along the eastern seaboard, and I'm worried about what happens to Sanders once he gets out of New England. Is he going to do well in the Oklahoma primary? I don't see it happening.
And a lot of what I've heard is that Bernie is just, again, sort of like what you said about Harry Reid. He's just such a polarizing candidate. I mean, Hillary is just so much more.
But so is Hillary. Hillary's more polarizing than Bernie is.
I don't think so. Well, I think Bernie is just like permanently, he's forever going to be tainted with the taste with the flavor of communism because
unfortunately,
with the he's always going to be communist flavored just a little bit. I think,
but he's not even a socialist.
Because even though he is very quick to point out every single time someone calls him a socialist, he never fails to correct them and say, "Oh no, I'm a democratic socialist." But in the ears of America, it's all the same. I mean, everybody is still so. I think we're all so. And by we, I mean obviously not you and I, because we love Bernie. We're very
Bernie.
Staunch liberals, but I mean
don't call me a liberal. That's a dirty word.
Okay, all right, but I'm just saying that I think that it's going to be a long time before America can really fully be comfortable with the idea of a socialist ruler.
Why
did I say ruler instead of leader? That's a little bit.
That's a little bit.
Maybe I feel like these people need some ruling.
Here's my idea, and I think you're right. Bernie Sanders is at most a social democrat, right? In the Norwegian mold. Mm-hmm. He's not a socialist. Right. He does not favor the overthrow of global capitalism or the democratization of the means of production.
Right.
He's not a socialist. And it's silly that people call him that. And I wish they wouldn't, because it's even in the media, where they should know better.
Yeah.
In America, he's a far leftist. But in the global scheme of things, he's rather... I don't want to call him conservative, but he's in the middle.
Right.
He's in the middle if you're in France or Norway, right? He's in the middle somewhere.
Right.
Yeah. So here's my question, though. If Bernie Sanders got the nomination, what would be his chances up against a contender like Jeb Bush?
Oh, okay. I think he probably beats Bush because Bush is looking bad right now. I don't even know if Bush is going to make it through the first couple primaries. He might just get decimated and call it quits. He's in fourth place right now.
Yeah.
I think in the general, it would be hard fought, but I think that Bush has George W. Bush taint all over him, right? We're and this is the problem. We're talking about like he's just been drenched in Iraq and the recession and hashtag stuff happens, right? He's just looked so bad that I think, and of course he's a Wall Street shill, so Bernie's got that on him, right? So I think it's probably a 51-49.
Not only that, but he also did say that he would have gone into and invaded Iraq knowing what he did, and I think that cost him quite a bit. Because even I think a lot of conservatives can now look at Iraq objectively and say, like, okay, probably could have been.
Well, yeah, they look at ISIS, and even if you blame Obama for ISIS, you still have to realize, like, the Iraq War created ISIS.
Exactly. Like, ISIS arose from the destabilization that came from,
Bush's war.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
if Bernie goes against somebody like Kasich, right? Kasich's got almost no chance to win the Republican primary. But people like Kasich are the most dangerous to Bernie because Kasich is safe. Governor of a swing state. He's going to win Ohio almost automatically. Mm-hmm. He's probably going to win Pennsylvania too, just because they're pretty close together. Yeah. So the idea that it's the establishment candidates that are actually dangerous to Bernie, except for Hillary. I think Hillary is his perfect foil. On the other hand, if he runs against Trump, he will destroy Trump. He will take Trump to the cleaners because everything about Trump is discredited except within the core of the Republican Party that wants to see him win the nomination. Mm-hmm. Everybody else knows that Trump is a goddamn joke. He will force many of the middle-of-the-road Republicans to stay home. They will just not vote.
Right.
And then Bernie is going to do the same kind of thing that Obama did in 2008. He's going to get the youth vote will turn out higher than it usually does. Mm-hmm. He's going to win educated liberals. He's going to win organized labor. He's going to win African Americans. He's going to definitely win the Latina vote, right? So I think if Bernie goes against Ben Carson or Donald Trump, he's going to kill him. Right. But the problem is it's Marco Rubio. He's the one hiding in the weeds right now. He hasn't peaked yet. He's set to, right? As soon as the Ben Carson, Carly Fiorina die off a little bit, as they will, because the more you're in the spotlight, the more criticism you get, and then the more voters get turned off of you. That's what happens when you peak too early. Same thing happened to like Herman Cain and, in the last election where Mitt Romney, everybody's second choice, ends up getting the nomination, right? So I think Marco Rubio is the most dangerous to Bernie Sanders. Not only is he look safe enough to be establishment, to win the Republican establishment, to get a lot of those middle-of-the-road people out. He's technically a Latino.
He's going to get the Latino vote.
He's from a swing state. He's going to win Florida almost automatically. So he's the dangerous one. Well, luckily it's
He's kind of devilishly handsome. He's got like sort of this face about him.
Well, now we know what you
He's like my sort of taboo Republican crush is Marco Rubio. A little bit.
My taboo Republican crush is Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Oh, okay.
Clearly.
I'm gonna have to agree
All right,
with that.
yeah.
Because I know he'd be with me like one time and leave, and that's okay. I want him to go.
Yes. He will pay you for the rest of your life to keep quiet about it.
Pay me off. Exactly. If we can just talk about socialists real quick, because of course this is my favorite topic. Leslie's laughing. I don't think socialists are going to win through a national election, right? That's the problem with calling Bernie Sanders a socialist, because he's not really one, and it's going to hurt him in the national election, that word is. Where I think socialists have the best chance of winning is in local elections, like in Seattle, and in local organized labor politics. That if you can win a bunch of small elections and influence things on city councils or county boards or school boards, small things like that, that's where the socialists are going to organize a little bit. And I think we need to reserve that word. We need the media to be responsible and stop using it, and use it only where it's relevant.
Right. Agreed. I also think there's something to what you're saying, and actually, they can be very effective in a local capacity. So,
well, that's where you're going to be able to get your people out.
Yeah.
Is you don't have to fight off an entire state's worth of skeptical Democrats and rabid Republicans.
Right.
You could win in a city like Seattle.
Yeah.
But you can't win in Spokane County, right, on the other side of Washington State, where it's very much conservative stronghold in that state, right? In the state that almost always goes blue, you have the eastern part of the state that is never going to go blue, and the socialists will never win there.
Right.
But they can win in a stronghold like Seattle. And you think about all the cities on the West Coast, Seattle, Portland, San Francisco. That's where the socialists have the best plans. Also, think of places like Detroit, right, where you want to bring the American working jobs back. You want to have strong, organized labor. That's where you're going to get your support. The socialists get their support in the streets, right? They don't have the national infrastructure that the Democratic Party does, for example, right? There's no real socialist party in this country. You have to win, little spots.
Yeah.
So, one last thing about elections real quick, and then we'll move on to our last topic. What do you think about McCarthy pulling out of the House Speaker race?
Oh, yes, I saw that.
What a bombshell.
Bombshell. Yes, yes. So basically he loses it for Republicans in the presidential election.
You think so?
I think so, yeah. I think they are, I mean, really, what do I think? I think that if Clinton, or if the Democrats maintain 2012 victories in terms of the states.
Right.
They don't have to do much. They don't have to get many other electoral votes to win it.
The Democrat winning coalition is clear at this point, right? Women, African Americans, and Latina population, right? Their winning coalition is pretty easy to see. The harder part is finding where do the Republicans find their winning coalition, because they keep scaring everybody off.
Yeah.
Right? You can't keep scaring off people in swing states like Florida and expect to win.
Right.
And I don't know can Trump win Florida? No. Can't win Trump can't win Florida.
So, no.
Not with such a strong immigrant community in Florida.
Right.
And he's going to have trouble in places like Nevada, and he's going to have trouble in other swing states where he just seems like a clown.
Right.
Right. What common sense Ohioan is going to vote for Donald Trump?
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
And who's going to switch sides? Right? Who's going to go from voting for Obama in 2012 to voting for Trump in 2016? Probably nobody,
yeah,
right?
He doesn't. Yeah.
Yeah, his path to victory is a lot tougher. He's going to have to win people that he probably can't win. And his unfavorables are also incredibly high, right? So that's important to think about. I think it's funny just coming back to McCarthy. McCarthy, of course, is a Boehner ally, and he's one of those Republicans who is not in favor of a shutdown. And so he couldn't win. When they did the count, right, his people did the count. He didn't have enough votes. He couldn't get the people in the Freedom Caucus, or whatever they're called, the far-right people, he couldn't win them over because he doesn't want a shutdown.
Right.
How crazy is the Republican Party right now?
Wow. They have to work some things out.
Something.
I mean, they're going every which way but forward. I don't know.
Well, and you remember in 2012, right? They released that report like, these are all the things we have to do to win the next presidential election. They've literally done none of them. They've hurt themselves with women, undeniably, with the Planned Parenthood fiasco from one end to the other.
Yep.
And they've hurt themselves with the Latino population marching around people like Trump.
Exactly. I mean, 13 million Latinos are going to vote.
Wow.
This cycle, so you've got to have.
Yeah, and if you can't win 80% of them, what do you think is going to happen? The Democrats, this is one of the things that, in my opinion, the Democratic Party has a problem with, is they are complacent on a lot of these issues, is that they know they're going to win African Americans, so they don't have to work very hard, right?
Yeah.
You can come out against police violence, but on a national level not do much, but be saying all the right things, and you're just going to win the African American vote, right? And this is not to make broad generalizations, but this is just an electoral statistical, like 90% of African Americans vote for Democrats. Is that a surprise? No. Is the Democratic complacency towards African Americans a surprise? Absolutely not. Mm-hmm. They can continue Democratic politics as usual, and this is why Bernie is so exciting to a lot of people, is because he's a shaker. Yeah. He's not good on race issues or gun control issues or anything like that, but he's good on the economic inequality, and I think that speaks to people.
Right.
So, when most people are probably going to vote for Democrats, right? They're going to win the general election. Yeah. It's as simple as that. It's kind of stupid. It's a tautology. If you win the most votes, you win the election, right? I'm going to cut that. I'm going to cut that shit out. That's coming out in editing. Note to self. Let's come back. Let's go ahead and move on to our third topic. So you are in your second year of grad school now.
Yes.
Let's debrief a little bit about your first year.
Okay.
Because we had a couple classes together, and it was really, and this is coming from me, because I was incredibly insecure when I got to grad school, and the learning curve was big. When you get here, you have to, like, just in classroom discussions and things like that, there's a level that you have to get up to. And it's great to see people who make observable progress. And I think we were in Dr. Kirk's class together.
Yes.
That's one example where you start at the beginning of the semester where we're doing those book reviews, and by the end of the semester, you're doing much better on the book reviews, right? Yeah. And the discussions are richer because there are a number of first-year grad students who are in that class, right, along with the second-year MAs and the PhD students who had been there before. Right. And it's good to see that kind of progress. And I just want to gauge what you think was your biggest challenge, and then the second part is like what is the biggest obstacle that you think you overcame?
All right.
Let's start with challenge.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Part of my ongoing, I think, challenge, not only in my field but just in general, is that I am an extreme introvert. I really do need to have a full grasp on material, on subjects, on topics in order to feel like I can command them. Command discussion about them. That was one of the most interesting parts of starting grad school. I mean, I had been out of school for six years, mm-hmm, and I'm coming from a poli-sci background anyway. So I got into my first history grad class and I thought, I have no clue what I'm doing. I mean, so yes, when I met Lindsay, I completely just was shy. I had no idea what I was doing with myself. But as you can only just move forward. And every day learn something new, and I feel more and more confident. So I'm pretty happy with my decision to go to grad school and get my graduate degree in history. I mean, I feel like it has completely changed the way I think about things, the way I think about the past, and the present. So I'm completely excited to be done, but I'm so happy that I decided to start this adventure.
So are you taking comps this semester?
Next semester.
Next semester. And you're doing because you did the non-thesis track?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, because I also did non-thesis. And I think it helps because, first of all, you don't have to do a thesis, and you get an extra semester to study for comps.
Right.
But God, I just love your answer, especially you use the word confidence. And I think it's so important, is that when people, I think, and I've espoused this theory before, but people who come to grad school straight out of undergrad are used to being the best student in the class, because otherwise you wouldn't go on to grad school, right? You're used to being, maybe not the best, but one of the top students in your history classes. You're used to contributing, you're used to getting good grades, and then you show up to grad school and that is shaken a little bit. But you were out of school for a few years. You had had a real life job, and then you switch fields and come into it, and it's all about gaining that confidence. For some people, it's gaining the confidence back after getting knocked down, or it sounds, and tell me if I'm wrong, but for you, just finding yourself in the field and then being able to build confidence around that.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly right. Mm-hmm.
And I want to compare that real quick, because Bonnie, this is your first semester of college.
That's right.
It's not grad school, and you've been out of high school for a few years.
Yep, several.
And so what then do you hear in what Leslie's saying? Do you recognize that in yourself, or is your experience a little different?
I mean, my experience is definitely very different because I'm entering at an entirely different level. I think in my case, a young adult who college never happened for me right after high school. I had to take an alternative. I had to take an alternative route. I had to work for several years. I had to save up and, get my financial situation a lot more secure so that I could pay outright for college.
Yeah,
we didn't have to pay any student loans. We're paying completely out of pocket, out of the money that we've just saved up from working. And so I'm in the position of being now someone in my 20s, going back to school and entering basically all these first level undergrad classes with all of these 17 and 18-year-olds that have just graduated high school. And in a lot of ways, I feel almost the opposite, where it's very easy for me to get frustrated with my classmates because I feel like I have a much stronger grasp of the subject matter than they do, because a lot of the concepts that we're studying, I'm taking classes like anthropology, sociology. A lot of these classes, we're still learning about very, very basic things, like maybe the idea that sometimes history is not recorded in favor of everyone equally. And it's like all these crazy concepts that are being breached to these 17 and 18-year-olds for the first time, and it's like I can see their minds being blown when they're like, "Oh my God, what do you mean?" And I'm just like,
"Oh my God, there were black people."
Yeah, it just
Natives.
feels
That's how I feel about history a lot of the time. Like, there were black people. How many African American authors do you read when you study the American Revolution?
None. And and I mean, probably one of the most. And and I'm running into trouble as well because one of our assignments that we have to do every week is we have to read an article and then construct a 30-word or less topic sentence as if it were an opener for a news story. And every week in class, the teacher always has me share mine, and he gives me the criticism that my vocabulary that I use in my writing is too extensive, and that I'm not appealing to what he refers to as the common reader. And so I'm sort of running into some issues with that because now, I mean, for years now, I've been editing and, proofreading and offering suggestions and reformatting Lindsay's grad level papers. And so I'm
She's
sort
the
of
key to my success.
And so, well, and I'm sort of used to a certain standard of academic performance, and because of that, I think that my perception of what the common reader is a little bit skewed because I'm used to consorting with grad students. So
that's really
yes.
funny.
So basically, to give you a succinct one-sentence answer, I feel like my experience is very different. Basically,
The opposite.
yeah, basically it's far opposite.
Bonnie, do you suffer from
I suffer every day
overconfidence?
from everything.
So, Leslie, let's come back to you because that's pretty. I love the contrast. First of all, like very beginning and nearing the end. Mm-hmm. So, what is your end goal? What do you want to do with your graduate degree?
I've just applied to law schools, and I'm gonna just go all the way. I'm gonna try to get my law degree.
Great.
And then start working in policy and hopefully change things.
I mean, what a better way to do it, right? Yeah. Is to get involved. I mean, from your campaign experience, and then you go to grad school, and then you want to work in the policy aspects, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and that makes complete sense. Bonnie, end goal?
My end goal, you know what my end goal is. I'm going to reverse global warming one day. I'm majoring in environmental science with a focus in organic chemistry, and I'm going to fix this.
That's
and you
awesome.
Guys can work together.
Yeah,
that
sure.
Awesome.
You can work on my campaign. Yeah.
You're going to become a lobbyist.
See, I don't know if I could ever go into politics. I have too much dark history. I've had too many encounters with people, too many photographs lurking around on the internet that I don't need surfacing on my campaign trail.
So let's sorry, that's so funny. Let's think, what is something you've learned about yourself from this experience?
I have learned that a lot of the time I do not think I know what I'm doing. Many of us don't think we know what we're doing or what the end goal is, but you need to just trust yourself and move forward. Don't look back, just keep going and you'll get there.
No, I think that's really it's counterintuitive, right? If you don't believe in yourself, you have to keep working until you get there. And I like that sentiment a lot because I think it speaks to the grad school experience for a lot of people. It's a real shock. I think the difference between your capstone undergraduate class and your first research seminar is, even if you're writing a paper of approximately the same length, the expectations, the research burden, the writing skills, all of that stuff is amplified or needs to be amplified. You need to take your skills and amplify them.
Right.
To live up to this field. Like, we have an entire field of authors and professors and researchers who we are joining into the conversation.
Right.
And you're no longer at the kids' table.
Exactly. I do want to say something about this. I am completely impressed and taken with UNLV's history department.
Oh, that's great.
And I am shocked, honestly, especially when I see, I mean, I don't want to throw any other programs under the bus.
Do it.
I have friends that also have completed their masters at UNLV, and the coursework, the expectations, the challenges are nowhere near what they are for the history department. And I am very frustrated with the fact that UNLV is not ranked the history department.
Right.
Considering the scholars that we have, the professors that we have.
I think part of it is just that we're so young. We only started offering a PhD, less than 30 years ago, if I remember right, like 22 years ago or something. And, the university itself, of course, is also quite young.
Right.
But I'm glad to hear that. I really am. I'm not glad to hear that other departments are not as strenuous as ours is. Like, that's kind of sad, I guess. But it's good to hear from your perspective that we have a strong department. And I've loved the people I've worked with, since I got here.
Yeah.
And I've always felt challenged, but also supported. Right? They want us to succeed. That's 100% of the time. Even if you hate a student, you want them to get a good grade and succeed.
Right.
And, not to say that any of the faculty hates any of the grad students. I don't think they do. But there's something to be said about making us become better students.
Right.
And pushing us to gain confidence in ourselves, to move forward in this, global discussion about history and everything.
Yeah.
What would you say then is, let me think, what about history makes you passionate about history? Like, why did you choose to pursue history instead of poli-sci, for example?
History is the key to our future. The lessons of the past are completely critical to where we're headed in the future. Having knowledge and understanding of the past allows you to think analytically about the future. I just feel like it's so critical in every field, whether you're becoming a medical doctor, you're going to be CEO of a company, or whether you're like Senator Reid and you are a politician. You've got to have knowledge about about the past in order to make decisions about the future.
And of course, you want to go into policy,
Yeah.
the policy built on precedent, built on bucking precedent, and I think I like the notion that understanding history, being able to think critically about something that we're not directly engaged in, right? Okay, hold on. Let me draw that back just a little bit. Like, we're always engaged in
Lindsay,
history.
trying to say history doesn't matter?
No.
We're not engaged in history?
Precisely the opposite, actually, is that we're always engaged in history. We're products of our history. And we've arrived because of the circumstances that have been, created by our histories. And then to be able to understand that and move forward, I think, for example, the conversation about race in this country, I think, is incredibly misinformed, especially I'm on the right, that there's a misunderstanding about what race means to the history of this country in particular. What did slavery and segregation and the genocide of Native Americans and the removal of Chinese people, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, how did that impact the fabric of our current society? Even though slavery happened 160 years ago, or double check my math, I haven't taken the SAT in a while. But the point being is that when Republicans tell black people to get over it, or Jeb Bush says black people want free stuff, that's why they vote for the Democrats, it blows me away, the kinds of misunderstandings about why the inner city exists as it does, right? If we can think of a stereotypical inner city, what do we think of? We think of poor ethnic minorities. And right or wrong, there's a reason why we think that, and the reason is implicitly historical. Bonnie, you are chuckling here. She's shaking her head at Jeb Bush. I can see it.
Why would black people want free stuff? It's not like they have any experience ever participating in a society where goods and services were exchanged without payment.
That's, yeah.
I mean, I chortle, but that is 100% true.
Right. Just egregious.
Well, and remember, when you give welfare to the capitalists, they call it a bailout. But when you give welfare to the black people, they call them welfare queens.
Right.
It's pathetic. It's really pathetic. But that comes through economic and racial history, from the start. Why do we assign these terms to different things? Why do we say one thing is a bailout while the other is welfare?
Right.
No, and sorry, I've now monopolized your answer to give a short rant myself, but
that's okay.
That was a rant with a question mark at the end.
Sorry,
Lindsay, you can monopolize any conversation you would like.
Yeah, this podcast is not an interview with Leslie. It's quizzing Leslie on how much she agrees with Lindsay.
Oh,
yes.
Stop that right now.
I'm
on a
happy.
scale of 1 to 10, how much do you agree with the following rant?
I'm happy to agree.
On a scale of 1 to 10, Bernie Sanders is awesome. I'm just kidding.
I do feel like Bernie Sanders is awesome, by the way.
You know, and I follow him on Facebook, and I see so many good things. I mean, he gave a quote either yesterday or today about the power of unions, and I think that's something that almost anyone can agree with, right? That the idea that the worker should have rights in the marketplace seems radical in 2015, and it's ridiculous to me that seems radical. But I think, you know, just the idea that we would ever allow workers to bargain for their own salaries and benefits, preposterous, right? And so, you know, I don't agree with Bernie on most things. I will support him because I'm a pragmatist. I'm going to write a blog post about this, I promise. It's coming. But right, he's not a socialist. I am a socialist. And I would usually not vote for a liberal, but I voted for Obama in 2008. I voted for Rocky in 2012, Rocky Anderson from the Justice Party, because I was setting my vote on fire in Idaho. It didn't matter. Mm-hmm. I'm going to vote pragmatically in Nevada because this is a swing state now, and it's going to matter, right? So that's why I will ultimately support Bernie Sanders. But Bonnie, of course, is a big Bernie fangirl.
I am.
And that's fine. That's okay. Still love you. And if Hillary gets the nomination, I'll vote for her in the general election as well.
Good.
Because it matters. Our vote.
Yeah, I'm not going to be like crying myself to sleep at night if Hillary Clinton gets elected. Like, that's still going to be a good day for America.
Yeah,
like,
it's going to be a good day.
Yeah.
Because at least it won't be Trump or Ben Carson or Jeb Bush.
I think you're really minimizing a lot of the good that it would do when you say, well, at least it wouldn't be Donald Trump. It's like, well, yeah, you could say that about a dog. Like, you could have a black Labrador for president and be like, well, at least it's not Donald Trump. No, like, I think that, you know,
Why
Hillary...
would you defame a black Labrador?
Well, no,
like
I think Hillary Clinton does. I think she would be really good for America. There are a couple of very minor issues, which I feel like I side a little bit more with Bernie Sanders, but he's honestly, I watched an interview last week where they were even asking the question of Bernie if he would consider running as a running mate for Hillary if he feels that he would not have a chance to win, and he said yeah. So yeah, I mean, there's a chance that might happen
There's
too.
a reason
Who knows?
why he caucuses with the Democrats.
Yeah,
right.
I mean,
You
I
know?
think that, you know, in the true spirit of politics, it's important not to become so divided that we're working against ourselves. Because if you and I are like, oh, well, we agree a little bit more with Bernie Sanders than Hillary on a couple issues, so let's just like oppose Hillary on everything. You know, it's like that's going to be completely counterproductive.
Well,
so.
here's another scenario.
I can say I hope she wins. I hope she wins. I don't hope she wins the most, but I do hope that she wins.
And that makes complete sense.
We should talk about the running mate.
We can talk about whatever you want to talk about. I would love to talk about that.
Do you think that... plus, I mean, a woman will be president for the first time.
Yeah,
ever.
who's going to be best on reproductive rights out of everyone?
Right.
It's going to be Hillary Clinton. Period, full stop.
Right.
That's
exactly.
it. And that's going to be good for
Well,
at least
everyone.
for all women in this country. Every single woman will benefit, and all of the societal benefits that come from that.
Right.
Okay, but go on. What was the next thing?
Do you think that Bernie Sanders would run with Hillary?
I mean, I think if he did, we would see a much more unified Democratic Party, because right now, I mean, Bernie and Hillary, I mean, the two of them are taking up over 2/3 of the Democratic Party votes right now. So, I mean, I think that if Bernie did join up with Hillary as her running mate, I think that they would be basically unstoppable. I don't see any GOP team, you know, any GOP candidate with, you know, and their running mate beating them. As for whether or not Bernie would actually do it, what, Lindsay, you're shaking your head like you disagree.
Strategically, I think they wouldn't pick Bernie. He's from a small state, and he doesn't win. He doesn't convert anybody to Democrat, because he would be to the left of the person who's actually at the top of the ticket.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
So I think that strategically he'd be a bad choice. Do I think he'd make an excellent appointment if he didn't want to be a senator anymore? Of course, he could head up education or something like that, right? Or the Department of Urban Development,
Yeah.
or something like that. I think you would look for somebody who is either a senator or a governor of a swing state, which is why I think Kasich is almost a shoo-in for the
Right,
GOP
right.
vice presidential nominee, or
Right.
or Rubio. If Rubio does not win the nomination, he's
Right.
also a shoo-in.
I think you're right, Lindsay. I think Mark Warner, Mark Warner, maybe Julian Castro.
Right, the Castros are hot right now.
Yeah, they're hot. But also, yeah. I think those are the two main folks.
Well, and then it becomes also strategic who picks first. If the Republicans pick Rubio for their nominee for vice president before the Democrats pick their nominee for vice president, I think that also influences it. Julian Castro's got a much better job of being the nominee for vice president if Rubio becomes the nominee for the Republicans. That's just strategic thinking, right? You want to try and mitigate the Latino votes that you're going to lose because of... Right, and we're thinking about these things in very one-dimensional terms. Obviously,
Right,
not all
yeah.
Latinos are going to vote for a Latino guy because he's a Latino.
Right, exactly.
And not all women are going to vote for Hillary because she's a woman, right? We would never make those kinds of claims. These are just statistical realities. So I'm thinking that you're going to see somebody from a big state. You're going to see somebody maybe who's a congressman or congresswoman from Pennsylvania or
Virginia.
Florida or Virginia or North Carolina. One of those places that's going to be on the edge. And that was why it was a surprise when Obama picked Biden to run with, because Biden was a small state guy. Who's Biden going to convert from Delaware? You know?
Well, but he gets, I mean...
No, he ended up being the establishment, the elder statesman to Obama's rookie senator, right?
Exactly.
So the pairing ultimately made sense. But it was not as obvious, perhaps, as other choices.
Right. He also gets Pennsylvania.
Right.
But Delaware, has 3 electoral votes?
Yeah. I was thinking too, John Edwards, and that, okay, we can say what we want to say about John Edwards, what a scumbag, but he played the role that Bernie is playing now. Talk about history, right? John Edwards made Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama talk about poverty. That was his go-to move. His income inequality became a significant issue because of John Edwards. In the same way that Bernie Sanders makes Wall Street and makes Citizens United an issue for the Democrats. Because we know Hillary Clinton benefits from the Citizens United decision. We know that. And she's probably going to win the Democratic primary because of it, or in large part because of it.
Absolutely.
Right? So he gets to play the shaker-upper. He gets to make her say things that will help her win in the general.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good thing.
I think so too. He may make her a better candidate.
He's going to make her better. And I think what we might see is that the Republicans are going to implode on each other, but the Democrats are going to make each other stronger. Is that if Hillary Clinton wins this, she'll gain legitimacy. And if he wins this, he'll gain a bunch of momentum. I think that's a good place to leave it.
Yeah. Done.
All right. So we're going to move on to recommendations, and we will start with Bonnie.
All right, so my recommendation is going to be for a movie that I saw very recently. It's called We Need to Talk About Kevin, and it's a great movie. It's about a family that has a psychopathic son, but only the mother is aware. Like, only the mom is the one who's observing all these behaviors and tendencies and things, and none of the rest of the family believes her.
Who's in it?
I don't know.
You don't know any of the people?
I don't know.
But you watched it and you enjoyed it?
Yeah.
Is it like an indie movie?
Not particularly.
Huh. Okay. Well, thank you. Leslie, what do you have to recommend?
I am recommending The Real Cost. It's a documentary. It's on Netflix. It is about the new slavery.
That's
about,
what it is, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, you've seen it. Okay, so you know this. I don't buy things anymore from H&M, Forever 21. I refuse.
Yep, done.
I mean, women, we buy stuff from those places. I judge people now if
Yeah.
they're
It's
shopping.
really hard to justify a lot of our purchasing practices.
Right.
You know, it's pretty...
Grotesque.
Man, it's hard to
Yeah,
avoid
for
some
sure.
things,
For
you know,
sure.
especially when it's a necessity like clothes. But you
Yeah.
just have to look for other stuff. We go thrifting a lot. I mean, the other half of my clothes, by the way, are from the thrift store. I think that's really important. The second market.
Right.
So, but that's great. So it's called The Real Cost. Do you know who made it?
Oh, I don't. I don't know who's in it.
We'll cut that out. That's fine.
Check it out.
We'll just like cut out all the questions that were like, oh.
No, that's exactly what I do. Like, I'll just.
There'd be no interview. No.
Well, my recommendation is John Oliver just had a piece on mental illness, and of course this comes out right after the shooting in Oregon, where conservatives who are refusing to pass common sense gun legislation blame mental illness for all of these shootings. And John Oliver says you can't get away with that because of all these Republicans like Mike Huckabee who not only call mental illness the proximate cause for all of these shootings, but then they refuse to fund treatments for it. And so you have things like Greyhound therapy, which is a problem here in Nevada, where we put people on Greyhounds and bust them out of the state. Or in Mike Huckabee's case, Arkansas got a D grade from some national mental health group under his leadership. And you can't say that mental illness is the reason for all these gun deaths and then refuse to do anything about it. And you can't continue to blame mental illness when most people who are, in quotation marks, mentally ill are completely nonviolent and are exponentially more likely to be the victims of violence. So I recommend that everybody go check that out. It's kind of a downer, but John Oliver, of course, he's masterful at those kinds of things. He's picked up that torch that Jon Stewart started, and his piece is incredibly moving. And just thinking about it, it really makes a pit in my stomach. The way that we have chosen to treat people in our country, some people who are incredibly vulnerable. And I thought his piece was very good. So on that down note, thank you, Leslie, so much for coming over. I just loved everything you had to say.
Oh, thank you for
really
Thank you, Leslie.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
And it was so much fun. And do you have social media like Twitter or anything? I can plug your Twitter. Nope.
No
Okay.
Twitter.
Follow her career closely, as I'm sure things will happen in the very near future. So thanks so much for coming over. Bonnie, you want to say goodbye?
All right. Goodbye, everybody.
All right.
Thanks
Thank you
for listening to us
so much
talk.
for listening. Thanks a lot. Thanks for listening to the Hansi Comprehensive Exam podcast. Be sure to follow the blog at hansycomprehensiveexam.com.